Greetings, everyone. I'm Michael Boriskin, the Artistic and Executive Director of Copland House, welcoming you to another in this series of virtual programs called Cultivated Spaces 3.0. This series features the online premieres of the 6 new works we have commissioned for our 2022 Cultivate Emerging Composers Institute. This wonderful program, Cultivate, brings together many components, far more than a new music reading, although it certainly is that. It is an intensive creative workshop, a mentoring program, a professional practicum. It provides ongoing artistic counsel and offers various career opportunities. These 6 online programs are a great adventure for us, and we hope they are for you too. If you miss any of them, you can check them out at icareifyoulisten.tv. We are very happy, speaking of I Care If You Listen, to thank Amanda Cook and her team. It has been wonderful working with them. Please keep up with Copland House by following us on social media and signing up at coplandhouse.org to get our e-blasts to stay in touch with all of the exciting things that we are doing here. But for now, I am so pleased to introduce Kian Ravaei, who is going to speak a bit about his new Cultivate work called Unstoppable. It is a very appropriate title for this piece, which is a joyous, super exuberant sprint. It feels almost as if one is breaking out into the bright sunshine from some kind of confinement, which, of course, most of us felt after 2+ years of pandemic disruption, which profoundly upended life. As Kian has written, this piece is for the survivors. It's played now by the brilliant cast of Cultivate from our Music from Copland House ensemble, clarinetist Moran Katz, violinist Paula Garcia, cellist Alexis Pia Gerlach, and pianist Margaret Kampmeier. We owe all of them a great debt of admiration. They are really the heroes of Cultivate, along with Cultivate director Derek Bermel, who we want to add to our shout out for his inspiring leadership of Cultivate since it began in 2012. Derek will join Kian after the performance for a brief chat. Now the performance. Please enjoy. Thank you so much for watching.
Hi everyone, my name is Kian, and I want to share a few words about the inspiration behind my piece, Unstoppable. This piece is dedicated to those people in our lives who are truly unstoppable, the people who prevail in the face of obstacles, and the people who are beaten down by life again and again, but continue to get back up and push forward. I'm talking about the cancer survivors. I'm talking about the civil rights activists. Maybe even the underdog sports players. We all have people in our lives who we admire for being unstoppable. And this piece is celebrating those people. It's saying, thank you for being unstoppable. Thank you for never giving up. And most of all, thank you for being a living example that love always triumphs over fear.
Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Bromell, and I'm the director of Cultivate at the Copland House. And welcome to Kian Ravaei, whose piece Unstoppable we just heard. Once again, it was such a pleasure to hear that piece again.
Thanks so much, Derek. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. How was your summer okay?
Yeah, it was great. It's nice to be back in person after the pandemic.
So this piece, you wrote about it for the survivors and the underdogs and those who prevailed when the odds were against them. What were you thinking when you wrote that?
You know, when I first wrote the piece, I didn't have the title in mind. It kind of started with the notes and the emotions in the notes. And I came up with this melody, which had a sense of urgency to it. And I changed a few notes and changed the accompaniment, and suddenly it had a feeling of tenderness to it. And then I came up with another melody, and that one had a ferociousness to it. And I kind of assembled all these different emotions into a story. And it's not a linear story, but it's one that makes sense, but is still hopefully a little unpredictable. It's kind of like a wordless drama of emotion. And then I realized after writing the piece, it kind of is like an underdog story, like someone facing an obstacle, striving to overcome it. And then there's this triumphant moment at the end in the climax that's like the obstacle has finally been overcome. And when I think about people who are unstoppable in my own life, I think of my grandma, who is a survivor of cervical cancer. I think of my parents, who are immigrants. They immigrated from Iran and established themselves in a new country. I think of my partner, who went from being a high school dropout to in a PhD program. So this piece is really for them. It's a celebration of their bravery and their mettle.
Yeah, and you're good at catchy tunes too. That's something that not everybody is proficient at, but you've just got them kind of oozing out. I mean, what? Tell me a little bit about melody, your relation to melody, what you think about it, and how you work with melody. Because you take a tune, it undergoes all kinds of processes, augmentation, canon, question answer. You background it, you foreground it, you slow it down, you put it in different keys. So tell me a little bit about melody. It seems like one of the central things in your music.
Well, melody is everything to me. That's what I love most about music. Melodic themes, melodic development, the way a melody changes over the course of a piece, as you so eloquently put, augmentation and diminution, and the background and the foreground. That's what really does it for me in music. I love rhythm, I love harmony. These all figure in my music too. But melody is really what does it for me. And it's what feels the most real for me. And it's also the form that most of my ideas take when I have them. So a lot of the ideas for this piece started as melodies. And then I take a melody and I change a few notes, I change the accompaniment, and I see if I can uncover all of the potential, all of the emotional angles of that melody in the piece.
And you start with this rhythm. You almost start with like a clave rhythm, I guess. This bum 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 bum. And so you're right away establishing a kind of rhythmic pulse, which really continues through the piece until at one point you shift back, and then it becomes dreamy for a second, and then it comes back into the propulsive. So obviously rhythm, that's also important for you, but I guess it interacts with the melody.
Well, let me tell you about one aspect of the piece where rhythm and melody are intertwined. Obviously, they're always intertwined because melody always has rhythm. But there's one moment where there's a melody that sounds like da 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 da, and then it's in a different tempo than the groove underneath. It's in the basic pulse unit of that is, to get into the weeds a little bit, is a quarter, it's a half note triplet, while the underlying groove is a quarter note triplet. And so there's a conflict there, there's a rhythmic conflict. And then at the climax of the piece, that conflict is resolved when the groove and that melody are in the same mensuration, the same tempo. So that's another way in which this piece kind of feels like a piece about overcoming struggle.
Yeah, when you use these different elements and they build to a certain point, and that's it's clear where that point is in the piece, as everyone could hear. And then, but that part that I really that stood out to me was that kind of dreamier part where you slowed down and you brought it into a kind of minor key. It sounded a little more pensive. Um, can you talk about that a little bit, and just how you think about structure in a piece, like the larger form?
Are you talking about the bit where the strings are playing pizzicato?
Yeah.
So one thing about form that I always think about is repetition. So how does each aspect relate to other parts of the piece? And when I repeat a section, how can I take it a step further? And one of the ways that I do that is augmentation, like you mentioned, which is you take a short melody and then you elongate it. And that figures pretty prominently in this piece, including in that section, because it's this moment where the tempo slows down and everything feels a little broader. And the amazing thing about augmentation to me is it doesn't feel like the melody is slower. It feels like time itself is slower. Like the melody has stayed exactly the same, but your experience of it has slowed down. So I start actually by thinking about those relationships and how I want to build into them so they'll have the most psychological impact.
Wow. Well, uh, yeah, I felt like the musicians really enjoyed playing this piece because it gave them something. It gave them that melody to kind of dig into. And do you what was your experience working with the musicians during the week? Because this is an unusual program where you kind of have time to make changes and can try things out and go back to what you did before or find something new.
I gotta tell you, it was really humbling. I came in thinking I've gone over every detail of this piece with a fine-tooth comb. It's 100% ready to go. It's ready to enter the repertoire. I've done everything I possibly can. And then first rehearsal, the musicians start making suggestions. I'm like, dang, they're right. That does make the piece better. So the piece definitely improved over the course of the week. And I'm so grateful for the advice that they gave me. And the beautiful thing about a program like this, I think one of the most amazing takeaways from a program like Cultivate is now for the rest of my life, I'm going to have a little Moran on my shoulder when I'm writing a clarinet part saying, hey, what if you brought that down an octave? Maybe that would sound cool.
Yeah, the I guess the compositions that have our names on it are also have a little bit of lots of other people in them, but
Absolutely.
hopefully that gets passed on through the generations, right? So and so what's next for you? What else are you working on that you're busy with now?
I have a big commission for a 20-minute string quartet coming up. And the details are still kind of murky, so I can't share that yet. But it's daunting and really exciting at the same time. Long form is something that I'm really interested in pursuing because, as we talked about earlier, I'm really interested in repetition and the way that we perceive music over time. And so when you have 20 minutes to play with an audience's perceptions, it's like you're in the candy store, a kid in the candy store.
Yeah, and of course we're working in the medium of time, so we're that's our material. So we have to be careful with it, how we use or are used by time, I suppose. Wow, that's really great. Well, I look forward to hearing that piece and to hearing more of your music as the years progress. And it was great working with you this summer. Um, so looking forward to the next.
Thanks so much, Derek. Likewise.
And thanks also to I Care If You Listen, who's been sponsoring this whole series, and as well as the American Composers Forum, and of course our team at the Copland House, Michael, Ian, and David, who were catering to everybody's needs and did so much great work throughout the week, and of course to the musicians as well. All right. Well, thanks, Kian.
Thank you, Jared.